Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to podcast number 9, I think. Josh, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Looking.
Good to be here.
Are you? We have freaking awesome questions today. I glossed over them, and I cannot wait to talk to you about these questions. You want to just start? You want to just
Yeah.
do this?
Yeah, let's do
Do
it.
this?
Let's get it
All
on.
right, man. Let's get it on.
Yeah.
This first question is by Haz.
Sorry, Bruce
And he
Buffer.
says, "Hey, Cole." He says, "Hey, Cole, Yaad, and Josh. I really appreciate your work, passion, empathy, and philosophy in building out LabCo Fitness." Well, thank you, guys. I know you're all super busy, especially Naterdad. Much respect, and I hope all is going well. And he has 2 questions for us. So let's first
do it.
deal with question number 1.
Okay.
The first question is, do you know of any way to minimize the chance of making more stretch marks when gaining mass relatively quickly? Wow, that's a good question, man, because I have a lot of stretch marks. Can you please help me?
Stretch. Yeah. Okay. So there is not a great answer for that because whether or not you get stretch marks is almost entirely a genetic thing. For example, my wife has 0 stretch marks from pregnancy.
Whoa.
None. And but she has been kicked in the leg by a horse and had her calf torn off, and she literally pressure wrapped it back in place. And it used to be like a fist-sized scar. Now it's about the size of one of my fingernails, and it's hard to see. So she has abnormal healing. Like almost none of her scars, they all shrink. Like they don't stay the same size. They go.
That's awesome.
They go away. A lot of her scars she just doesn't have. Like they used to be there and they're just gone now. And the really, really big ones are hard to find. Also, they turn purple. She has a fair amount of Spanish ancestry, which you wouldn't guess because she's really pale and redheaded. But
Yep.
well, she's
I would never guess that.
Yeah, she's so her maternal grandmother is full Native American. She is Blackfoot and Cherokee and has like a special place in the tribe. And then her father, one of his grandparents is also, I forget what tribe they were. And then her family is also on the books in, I think it's St. Augustine, Florida, as one of the arriving families of the original Floridian settlement. So there is a lot of not white stuff in there, and she and her brother are just as pale as they can be. But their younger sister tans like nobody's business. It's crazy. And so, I mean, you can never tell by looking at people what's going on. And the same thing goes for, scarring. You don't know until you know. Because what you have to realize is that a stretch mark basically is a scar. It's just inside the skin. And as far as things you can do, massaging them is actually very helpful. Potentially some infrared, maybe. But that's more preventative. A lot of it is just don't grow as fast,
What?
And here's the thing, though. Sometimes that doesn't matter either. Sometimes even if people are growing slow, they'll still get stretch marks. And I wouldn't worry about it. I really, it's whatever. It's like, what, is it a bad thing that you're able to grow fast? No. So, you know what I mean? Cool. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's just your body, not a big deal. It just kind of means you got buff. And the as far as minimizing appearance, there are a few things that do work. The biggest one is time. The next one, medically, you can get over the counter. There's a cream called Strivectin. I forget what's in it. There's 2 aspects to why that works. One is actually some of the compounds that are in it, and the other is literally the massaging of the scar tissue that's in the skin that is the stretch mark. Massaging and applying pressure to the like stretch, like going through and kind of just, it's the same thing with skin. If you want your face to stay less wrinkled, the cream that you use is almost irrelevant. What actually matters is massaging your face for a couple of minutes, maybe 2 or 3 times a day, because that stimulates the fibroblasts in your skin to keep making more collagen everywhere. It's really not that different from the concept of tendon strengthening. If you put enough tension on to mechanically activate those connective tissue building cells, guess what they're going to do? They're going to make more connective tissue. So
This is pretty good. This is we can branch off a lab coat beauty, like beauty tips. I like this.
Hey,
I'm massaging my face right now as we speak. I don't want these.
Yeah,
wrinkles.
and that's the thing is like that's something that you either do early or there's no going back from wrinkles because they're just kind of a pressure thing where connective tissue breaks down in specific areas and it's really not gonna build back up to the same degree that it was. And it's a normal part of aging too. And genetics go in. I look younger than many of my classmates who are 10 years younger than me. And I don't massage my face. But that's just both sides of my family age slow. So
That's sick.
just is what it is. They all live forever if they don't get cancer, and they all get, cancer in their like late 80s if they get it. So, I mean, it's whatever. The other thing that actually does help is topical vitamin E. And that's something you can do if you notice an area is growing really quickly. This can reduce the prevention, the appearance and the severity of stretch marks that do come. I'm not sure that it's really accurate to say it can prevent stretch marks, but it can minimize what happens. And that's where so you can either buy vitamin E oil, or a lot of times it's way cheaper to get the 1,000 IU gel caps. Never take that much vitamin E. That is enough vitamin E to reduce clotting factor and cause increased bleeding. So I would not ever take supplemental vitamin E orally. But on the skin, it doesn't absorb in, it's a local thing. And for whatever reason, I honestly don't know the mechanism on that off the top of my head. I'm not even sure we really know what's going on with that. But there does seem to be something to topical vitamin E being kind of just rubbed into the area. I doubt this is going to make a difference for wrinkles, but I don't know. It won't hurt you. But for stretch marks, it actually does seem to be the other thing that actually reduces them.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that would be like one is give it time. 2, strivectin, which is expensive, and you do need to use it. I want to say, I know at least 6 weeks, but I think it's like 6 months to get like maximum effect. That's not a prescription. There are generic versions of it, so just look for the active ingredient and you'll see, and it's like half the price, which does make it affordable. And then the vitamin E is very cheap. You just get a gel cap, break it open, and just rub it right on with the strivectin, whatever. And I would not go crazy on anything beyond that. There probably are therapies like low intensity, like infrared laser and stuff like that, but you're not going to get insurance coverage. It's going to be expensive. I don't know how effective it is. I would do these things first before worrying about anything else, and do not worry about it. Nobody's going to give 2 craps. You know what I mean? There's going to be really weird, superficial people, and you don't need them.
All right, let's move on to the second part of his huge question, because this part is really big, so I'm just going to make it shorter. He says, what are your recommendations for people with recurring Gulver's elbow / medial epicondylitis?
Yeah.
He's got it in both his elbows over a year ago, and basically he got it from doing one-arm chin-up negatives, and he followed Stephen Lowe's tendonitis rehab protocol. Do you know that protocol? He has linked it.
Just describe it to me. Yeah, or if you,
I remember it being 25. Like, I'll throw the link to you.
Yeah,
but also at the same time, I'll tell you what it is, because I think if I remember correctly, it's like high rep but slow eccentrics is what it basically is. But that's
yeah, I got this book. I really wanted to like it because I think Steven's extremely committed to just to helping people in general, to be honest with you. I do like him. And we talked a lot. I've offered to help, like in the future with a newer edition of the book to make things much more readable and organized. But it's not bad. It's not great. It definitely doesn't live up to the hype. But I do think that unlike the Overcoming Gravities, which are very much a mixed bag, that the information in it is much more reliable. And to his credit and everybody else who tries to talk about this stuff, including myself, you can't predict what any one person's going to respond to. When you look into the research for any given injury, there's no protocol that has better than like a 30 to 50% success rate, basically. And that's because we don't really know why different people develop similar injuries. So there are and some people, we all have different versions of the same genes, and that means that we have slightly different respond, like we respond the same way fundamentally, but it's kind of like there's a difference between a regular street car and a high performance race car, even though they both burn gasoline, you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so even though they had all the same basic systems, cooling, transmission, blah blah blah, one reacts differently than the other to a similar degree of exertion. And so the maintenance requirements for them are somewhat different, and problems tend to happen in different areas too. So because of the way that they're used and the way they respond, and bodies are very similar to that. So you kind of have to start with one thing and try it, and doing it for like a couple of weeks is honestly often not enough, which is kind of frustrating. There are some injuries that don't start responding to therapy for months, and they are responding. It's just you can't tell. So you've got to be super patient with stuff like this. I actually have that book somewhere over in my stack over here. I got
What
it.
is it out?
Yeah, it's been out for a while. I got it because I wanted to give an honest review. Somebody was talking about it, and I really wanted to like it. I liked I think it had very good promotion. I thought they did a great job promoting it. As far as
But
the
it
way they
says,
did it, it
are you sure?
underdelivered.
But it says it's supposed to come out in 2019 winter.
No,
Are you talking about overcoming? Well, it says on
tendonitis.
that same page that I just sent you.
He may be doing a second edition.
Oh,
I
okay,
know that he
okay.
knows that he needs to, and here's the thing, anybody who's ever tried to write something knows that it is super hard to get it right the first time. And if you don't have laymen who are doing as a part of your editing and proofreading, then you're not going to have the product you were hoping for. It just
Is it
is
not
what it is.
overcoming posture you were reading?
No,
Overcoming poor posture.
no. Let me. I know that it's. Oh shit! Never mind.
Yeah, I think it's poor posture you were talking about.
You're right. You're
The-
right.
Yeah, the
That's my
tendonitis one
fault.
isn't out yet.
That's my
Yeah,
fault. That's my fault. Yeah. So I have overcoming poor posture. I was
yeah.
not the most impressed with that. But it's not bad either. It's just that it was approached, I think, with a somewhat narrow view in certain areas with uh very good explanations in others. I think the biggest thing I had with it is that it's not that the language is not as accessible. Like when you hear, you know, pain is a very complex topic. One of the first models of pain was the gate control theory. No explanation of what that is. This theory quickly became outdated. More models began to replace it. The two primary models, neuromatrix theory of pain and the biopsychosocial model. And so and then he goes into the factors that go into that one, and then talks about neuromatrix, and they do an all right, but see, like, it's a lot of, it moves very fast, and this is one of those challenges. This part's actually, for a book this size, I don't think that I don't think that it was possible to do it to do a better job with the space that they took, but they only took 1, 2, 3.5 pages to talk about that. So there's limited understanding, and so it's more of a college level text, which makes sense because he and the guy who wrote it are both physical therapists. They have a hell of a lot of education, so it is extremely hard to dial it all the way back to the 8th grade level, and that's what you have to do. That should always be your goal when you want a wide audience, because that's the typical average reading level is 8th to 10th grade, and that's not bad. I mean, that's reading Shakespeare and stuff, but it's not. It can't be super technical. And that's the thing. There's also like the next part on like pain and muscular tightness is not done very well at all. I mean, the organization's okay. It's just that a lot of the stuff is very incompletely explained and is not actually very accurate. And then the next part, adaptive responses to stress and strain over time, is actually done really well. So that's one of the things that I see in like Overcoming Gravity as well. I know this wasn't meant to be a review of Stephen Lowe's stuff. No, but it's just things that I think all the time is like, and I'm not trying to rip him either. I have a lot of respect for what he's doing, and he's really has exceptionally good covers and names for things, and they do a wonderful job of telling people what they want to give them. It's just the final products take. I think that because they have a limited budget and a small crew and they're trying to avoid leaks, I don't think that they have the right editors, and I don't think they have an editor. I think that's the problem. They don't have a professional editor and proofreader. I just don't see that listed anywhere, and that's very unfortunate. That's what they need. I think if they do that, like, I mean, I see where they're saying, edited by this person and proofreaded by this person, but what's coming out of it, these people don't know enough and are not connected enough to lay people. I think that you have to have that combination. I don't know. That's where the disconnect is happening. So I'm hopeful for the tendonitis thing. I think that is by far where he's got the best chance of really hitting a home run, because that's completely within his wheelhouse. The posture thing is not as much, because he's trying to go into neuroscience and things like that, and it's not his area of expertise. And that's not a knock either. It's a challenge we all run into. But I don't know. I mean, I always have cautious optimism because he is smart, and
yeah, he's super smart.
He does, and I think that the hard part with trying to do things online is that I think that you would get a substantially stronger interview than you get the written material. You know what I mean? Because I think that he probably does know what he's doing really well. It's just that putting it into text is extremely hard. So I'm excited. I don't know. We'll see. So tell me again about the protocol that you mentioned.
If I remember correctly, because I remember people referring back to this in the past, he's giving first in that article he's doing the what was it called, the RIAP thing. You rest, ISIT, use NSAIDs.
Yeah.
Pain, blood flow, whatever. I think, like, don't quote me on this. I don't know for sure. But the thing is, eventually do 25 reps.
Oh yeah. No, he's debunking the rice thing. Yeah, which is
he's debunking.
RIAP.
Okay, cool. So
yeah.
Okay,
like I said, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. But he's talking about eccentrics being very important.
Yeah.
And he's saying, well, apparently 30 to 50 reps for 3
his
sets.
Write-up, yeah, his write-up is from what I'm seeing based on the link, and we'll include the link in here so that people can take a look.
Don't quote me on this. I'm quickly reading this.
I think that yeah, I mean, I have to read through. What I'm seeing so far is very good.
Yeah.
This is also showing some limited knowledge on certain areas, but he is absolutely the things that I do see. And the only reason that I had that is medical school. I mean, you can't replace that level of hard science with anything else, and you're not supposed to. But so in my opinion, I think that this is a great page to have a permanent link to. That's just my opinion.
No, I think it's a great article.
That it's so is he? So I'm looking at different things that he's saying to do. I really don't have a problem with any of the
he's
exercises.
Also recommending collagen with vitamin C.
Yeah, of course.
And he's actually referring to you. Naderman's anecdotal evidence on gelatin plus vitamin C combo with resistance training. That's pretty cool.
And, I think that what he needs to do there is also include some of the like the PubMed links, just so that people can see that it's not like a random thing. It actually
he did.
Yeah.
He did.
Okay, great. Yeah, like I don't have time to go through all his stuff.
No, I'm quickly scrolling towards it, but it looks really good.
Like I said, I think that this is basically his wheelhouse. This is where he's going to shine. So I expect that this is going to be a really good book. There it is. I see it. That's hilarious. That's very cool.
Yeah. But anyway,
I like it.
The person who sent the question he says he's been doing that for a while, and but it's still incredibly frustrating because he's nowhere near where he was before.
Right.
And sometimes he feels
I'm going to tell you
aggravation.
A 15-second story.
Okay.
When I had bicep tendonitis and I say bicep tendonitis, I had generalized forearm tendonitis. I had medial, lateral, every fucking thing that went across the elbow was jacked up because I was strong. I just pulled myself hand over hand up ropes, and because I could, because it was cool. And we were doing, we were in SEAL training, and I just was doing it. And people who are wondering, there is a reason why you should be using your feet when you do high volume rope climbs, especially when you're going for speed. But anyways, so it took me about 6 months just to get to where my elbows didn't hurt. I'm not talking about didn't hurt with like hard exercise. I'm just talking about where when I was to get back to my baseline from before the injury, that took 6 months of daily, not 3 times, daily, like stretching 3-4 times a day gently with specific stretches that I made up because the ones I was given weren't working well enough. And what that is I'm going to demonstrate on the video. So typically, the key points is you see where my thumb is at. It's at the very back of the base of my palm on the back of my hand. By the way. Yeah, so this is for the wrist flexors, which is the medial epicondylitis. So because they all attach here, and I'm just showing they all attach right here. Okay, and it's not just them; it's the pronator muscles, the superficial flexors. There's a deep set that actually attach to the forearm bones themselves to a large extent. You don't need to worry about that. And also, there's some of the wrist muscles that go in both directions also attach here, and a different set attaches here. So you have, but they all go wrapping in this direction, like this spiral type of direction. So like, for example, if you see here, where my wrist, and if I'm in a neutral position, as I supinate, I'm actually stretching those muscles. So if you're not supinating at the wrist, and that's not the same, that's not externally rotating at the shoulder. You want the shoulder to stay still and the wrist to turn out as it extends. So the way you do that is I would grab my fingers across here, and my thumb would go behind the pinky at the base of my palm. Because what that did is it allowed me to get a really, you can see here when I line up with the camera how this twists, and it's very comfortable when you get used to it. The key is that pressure point on the pinky. If your pinky's here, you're just going to feel like you're tearing your fingers off your hand. If your pinky is back here, just above the wrist, at the bottom of the metacarpals, then you are going to feel really comfortable, and you'll actually feel the stretch here throughout the forearm, going all the way up. And so what I would do is first I would get the wrist all the way back with a bent elbow and twist it, and then slowly start extending the arm until the tension started to increase. And so at first I was like this, and the people who are looking at this will see that my elbow is like, 70 degrees bent. I'm not even close to straight. But that's because I have a big strong stretch here, so I don't want to keep going and tear something. That's stupid. I want to be comfortable. And as time went on, I was able to straighten more and more and more until I was completely straight like this, and also was able to turn out. And starting with the arm, and then I would also do the same thing with the arm straight, pull back, and then, twist the entire forearm. And it takes a little while to figure out where you need to put your thumb, but once you get it, you're like, oh wow, like this is a real stretch. And that is what you need. And you got to hold that, just like any stretching protocol. If you want the best results from it, you need a total of 3 to 5 minutes per stretching session, and you need at least 5 or 6 stretching sessions a week. More than that doesn't seem to help very much in terms of flexibility, but in terms of pain, your mileage may vary. So you have to remember that there's multiple things you're doing. One, you are reprogramming your fear of, and it's not like a conscious fear, but like you've already been trained to kind of expect pain. And that means you're going to get pain to a greater degree, because pain is a processing outcome. It's not a signaling outcome, if that makes sense. So when somebody, tells you a number, the number doesn't mean anything until your brain processes it and gives it context, right? It's just information with no meaning. You have to give it the meaning. And that's why different people who can be told the exact same thing have different reactions. So that's a big thing with pain. So that's the top-down part of pain. And the signaling, you also have to change. You have to slowly desensitize all of these different circuits that you're activating, pressure circuits, nociception. All of these things go into essentially interneuron networks that influence that processing activity. So you can change the signal volume, and you can change the way that you think about the signal. And between those two things, excuse me, that takes care of essentially the entire central part of pain. And then the peripheral part is the tissue itself. And you've got to let it heal. You've got to let it stretch out. You have to let everything, quote unquote, get back to normal. And it's a slow process. So, you've been dealing with it for a year. Chances are that you have gone through periods where you felt better and thought you could go back to faster progression. And you hit a certain point and things start having problems again. And so then you go back and you've just been, bouncing, and you've got to slow down your rate of progression. You have to really focus on staying comfortable all the time. You're going to have to focus a little more on microloading certain things and limiting your volume. This is a very frustrating thing. And there are also, you may just have limitations that you can't completely get past, and you may need supportive equipment. You may need to use like those below the elbow Chopat straps, like people use on the patellar tendon, just to take some pressure off. And, does it really take pressure off? Probably not, but it creates a different feeling, and it distracts you from some of that pain, and it can change some of the tendon forces. And so you're, those things all matter. So that's what I'm trying to get is you have to take a multidisciplinary approach. You have to be patient, and you have to realize that there's not going to be like a magic fix for you, and you cannot do things the way that you did them before you got this problem, especially now that you've had it for a year. You have to you've had it for a year, it's going to take a while to, kind of get past. And like for me, every single time that I was starting to curl more than 200 pounds, I started having elbow tension issues. And the thing is, I was not intelligent enough. I didn't have somebody standing by me who knew what I know now. And so I just kind of kept doing the same thing over and over again and kept running into the same point. So I never progressed in my barbell curls past 205 pounds, um, because I didn't understand what I needed to do. I didn't understand that at that point I needed a lot more low weight, more reps kind of work, and that I needed to go through and cycle my training appropriately and not work heavy not do like a heavy set every day, of training or even every week necessarily. And it doesn't always need to be 200 pounds, just to keep my strength. Like there were things that I just wasn't doing smart enough. And I think that if you look at you, you will find that you have similar patterns. So the first thing is you got to stop beating yourself up. You got to take it slow. There were certain areas that, and to give you some hope, when I was 210 pounds, I could do one-armed chins, no pain. You know what I mean? So, but I took my time and I spent like a year just doing assisted one-armed chins, and I kept them easy. I wanted them to feel comfortable, and I just slowly used less and less and less assistance. And I was just doing the finger assist, but it felt great. I never had any problems. I always made sure that I did enough assistance to where even though I was doing most of the work with one hand, that I never felt any kind of strain or pressure. And that allowed me to achieve things that, earlier in life, I just couldn't pull off, because I wasn't being smart enough or patient enough, you know? So I know that was a lot of talking, but
Yeah.
there's no quick answers to some of these things, and you really do have to kind of dive a little deeper, in order to get something that is, I guess, like more acceptable than, bro, just slow down. You know what I mean? Because that's not
Yeah.
helpful. That doesn't give you any context or understanding. It's just me telling you something, and I'm just another guy you've never met. Sure, people think I'm smart, whatever. Yeah, I've done some school, but I'm just a dude. So being able to walk you through some personal experiences and also some of the underlying processes that you're dealing with, and understanding that just like, you know, unlearning a fear or unlearning a bad habit, it doesn't just happen in 3 weeks. It takes time. You can almost think of it in terms of like learning to cope with anxiety or PTSD or anything else that's a processing issue. Uh, it's a long-term approach. And yeah, you can make noticeable progress fairly early, but you have to stay on track. You can't change your approach just because you're feeling better. And that's the hardest thing for everybody in all aspects of recovery is remaining consistent and not getting tricked into thinking that you're cured. You know what I mean? You got to keep it
Yes,
up.
sir.
Stay strong by staying consistent, and don't try and hit the gas. Just creep forward and you'll be all right.
All right, let's move on to the next question. We got 10 more questions to go. The
That's cool.
first question, the second question is by Joeri van Hoek.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very, that's important questions, man. He asks, with summer vacation around the corner, I was wondering what your advice or view is on maintaining physique and strength building during holidays. Because you can't train as much, or
Right.
not at all. And often you cannot even maintain your diet.
Mm-hmm.
So, for this goal of maintaining fitness, is there a certain training style you would advise to do during these days?
Yeah, I would. With stuff like that, don't worry about it. Anything you lose, you'll build back
Don't
super
worry
quick.
about it. Yeah.
B, enjoy your vacation. One of the most important aspects of long-term success is not being obsessed when you're supposed to be taking time off. A
Yeah.
couple of weeks is actually good for you. So, will you lose a little bit during that? Sure. You're also going to build it back the first 3 weeks that you're back, so you shouldn't worry about it. But there are also people who like to just kind of randomly do some stuff. And something as simple as just repping out with body weight pull-ups and, just other things that you can do. And just basically training to failure with limited volume and very easy exercises that you can easily do like 20 comfortable reps with at least. Just do that. And don't think any more than that. Just do it. You know what I mean? Pick an easier version of pseudo planche push-ups or something that you can do 20, 30 good reps with. That might not be very much lean. That's fine. And just, you might start with more lean and use less lean in the later reps. Like, I don't care. Just take it
Do your reps, bro.
Yeah, just, when you realize you're about to start losing form, reduce the lean so that you can keep your form and do some more reps and then reduce the lean and then finish up with just regular push-ups so that you can take things all the way to failure safely and just only do 2 or 3 sets that way. You're going to maintain everything, And
what about
diet?
part?
The only thing that I would think about is just bring protein with you. Don't give a fuck about anything else. Do what you want. Don't think about your calories. Okay, if you get a little chubby,
food.
That's just part of you enjoying your vacation. And if you don't want to, then just eat less of the same things, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? You got control, but you don't always need to use it. That's the thing, Letting it go for a week is a wonderful, liberating feeling, and it makes you hungry to get back into it too, because you can say, "Oh man, my mind is just so refreshed because I'm not thinking."
So what about when they get back? How should they restart? So they can't just dive into heavy lifts immediately.
No, there's actually very good data on how to approach this. For every week of a layoff, here's what you do. I'm just going to use easy numbers. We're going to say you're using 100 pounds. I don't care what it's 100 pounds because this is how we're going to illustrate the point. For every week off, you should drop the weight by 5%. So if you're off for 3 weeks, you should come back and you should be using 85 pounds for the first week that you're back. The second week that you're back, you should be using 90 pounds. And the third week that you're back, you should be using 95 pounds. And the fourth week, you're right back to what you left with, which was 100 pounds. That's the right way to work back in after a layoff.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's it.
Clear and concise.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're not adding volume. You're not adding sets. You're just building back up safely to the resistance that you were comfortable with. If you're really young and healthy, you may not need to do it that slow. If you are old and beat up, you may decide to go a little slower than that. But that's the basic guideline I would suggest everybody does. And then once you hit your 4th week, then you can, restart mass cycle or something like that. But that first 3 weeks should just be like, okay, well, what did I end with? And you're going to do those, you're going to use that, you're going to take 85% of that weight and just use the RIR. Just go to like 2 RIR, just like normal, reps in reserve for people who aren't familiar. And so if you think that you basically go until you say, I've got like 2 good reps left, so I'm going to stop the set now. And that's all it means. You're not as concerned with the number as you are with the feeling of, I've got like 1 or 2 left, probably 2. This is the end of my set. And that's all you do. No big deal.
All right, next question by Nicholas Massman.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is an amazing question because I also sometimes question this. This one's all yours. What are some signs that various rep ranges work well for us individually besides PRs? How do you know a rep range works well for you?
So one thing that I would say, obviously, your personal progress is the first thing you should be looking at. There is no single greater indicator of your body responding well than your body actually responding well. I know that sounds funny, and I kind of feel like a jackass saying it like that.
No, but
you got to put it in context. Okay, but there are other things.
Okay.
You look at the research, okay? And this isn't just numbers on paper. I've had this experience. Every single person alive who's lifted heavy and lifted light and done both for a long time has had this experience. You feel a lot less beat up when you're lifting on the lighter side than when you're lifting on the heavier side. So even if you are growing well with, 5 reps using a 7 rep max, which is your 2 reps in reserve, you may find that after, 2 or 3 months, you're still making progress, but you start feeling just worn down. Like you're not even really tired. You're just like, I don't know, something's a little off.
Yeah,
you got to change it up.
A little bit stiff.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah, it's time to change that up. And it might not be that long. You may find like, okay, it's been 4 weeks. And like the first 3 weeks felt great. I still feel good, but I can tell, it's like, and it's hard to even put into words what you can tell, but you can just tell that you're coming up on this starting to be a trade-off instead of everything being good. And that's the time.
I think people,
that's the
people
time
know
to
what
switch.
it is.
And that's the thing.
It's
you're never going to know until you go. So the reason why early on we want you to expose yourself to like 15 reps with 2 reps in reserve, to 10 reps with 2 reps in reserve, and to 5 reps with 2 reps in reserve, is that those are substantially different effort levels. But as a whole, on average, they're going to cause the same amount of growth. So you've got to find out what feels good to you and kind of for how long. And that's going to let you make good decisions about what you need when. And also understanding that you may find that, wow, when I switch these cycles up every 4 weeks, I just feel great. Or you know what? I can run 8 weeks easy and feel kick ass with like that 10 reps. With the 15, I just start getting a little too much volume. And with the 5, I just start feeling a little worn down. And so you can customize how long you work with each rep range. Does that make sense?
I like that. I like that a lot because I know a lot of people react differently. For me, long cycles didn't really work well. I would always end up in problems, even if I felt good.
Mm-hmm.
But I would get that worn out feeling you were talking about. Where your shoulders feel a little bit stiffer. It takes longer to warm up. It's like you're not as motivated to go to the gym.
Right.
Just general fatigue signs. And when I have shorter cycles, I don't know, that refreshment every 5 or 6 weeks is really good for me. But when it gets to 8 weeks, I can't handle it. I just die.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. That just means that you've learned something about yourself. And now your personal implementation is probably going to be different than mine. And that is fine.
That's totally fine. But I like that.
Yeah, because we're following the same rules. And that's where we're going as we continue these cycles and we continue offering more and more guidance. And is that we're really turning people into educated lifters. And that's something that's sorely lacking. You get kind of these BS explanations and you can't absorb everything at once. You can read a book, you can read it 10 times, but until you've kind of lived each chapter, they don't mean so much to you and you can't put it all together. And so instead of throwing everything all at once and letting people kind of screw themselves up by accident, we're giving you what you need month by month. And we're making sure that your mind and your body are built together.
Exactly. Let's move on to the next question by Daniel Manu.
Okay.
This question is for me. He says, "Hey Yaad, tell us a funny story of yours." Okay. I thought about this because I read this question before. I was like, I gotta prepare for this one because I don't know. I have so many funny stories, but this one is related to calisthenics, so I think I'll tell that one.
Okay.
So I was a friend of mine was like, "Hey, you wanna do this workout with Artem Mazarov, who's like a famous calisthenics guy. He's a Russian guy, really skinny but insanely strong."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Yeah, dude, let's do it. It's awesome." I was in the middle of a mass cycle back then. I was really inflamed. Like I was tired. I was like the end of the mass cycle, but I took 2-3 days off. I hadn't done a lot of skills, so straddle planche was even hard for me. Anyway, I got there. We were the 3 of us, my friend, and some other guy, and then him, and his girlfriend actually. So it was 4 or 5 of us, and we were warming up, doing a bunch of stuff, and I was fanboying about him. I was like, "Oh man, you're so cool! You like one-handed handstands. Your full planche is so cool." and he was doing the shreddle Maltese, and I looked at him and was like, man, I wish I could do that. Yeah, I said that to him, but I couldn't back then. I had never done a Maltese, and then I just went to the bar. I was like, you know what, I'll try. And he looked at me. I was like, okay, go ahead, try. And I popped into a full planche, a full Maltese. I kid you not. Held it for 6 to 7 seconds. I fell out, and I looked at the camera. And I said, "What the fuck?" And then he looked at me, sort of betrayed. Like, what, you're supposed to be, you're supposed to be weaker than me the way you're talking.
Yeah.
That was the first part. Okay, and then he was like, "Oh, cool. This is gonna happen. That's fine." So then he was doing the impossible dip. You know, but if people can see me, that's basically like a tricep extension dip where you keep your body upright the entire time. So it's really hard. It's a really hard exercise. And he was doing that, and he went to a straddle planche, then he went to a one-handed handstand. I was like, damn, man, you're so cool. I wish I could do an impossible dip. You know what? I'll try. And then I'll try it again. And what do you know? I could do it easily.
You need to
He looked
share.
at me again. No, he looked at me again. And was like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Okay, but that was number 2. Then the third time, he was doing full planches to handstands. Now, at this point, I had done straddle planches to handstands. I could only do 1 reps. It was really difficult for me back then. So I was like, man, I wish I could do a full planche to handstand. That's so cool. And sure enough, I did a full planche to handstand, and he just walked away.
I was going to say, you see, like, I'm out of here. This motherfucker is trolling the shit out of me. I'm done.
But that was genuine. I could not do these things.
I know.
And then
I remember you telling me about
this. Yeah. And the funniest part was, he just it was like, okay, fuck you, in his mind, because I know he was thinking that. He went into a handstand and he did 40 to 50 handstand push-ups freestanding.
Wow.
And then I was like, yep. See, you're still the guy, man. Don't worry about it. Like, I got destroyed there, but I wasn't even trying to compete. I was just really strong that day for some reason. It was just all the mass training helped, and I could just do these things for some reason. And I was hyped because I wanted to impress him.
And that's the thing. Everybody is stronger on competition day. And it's not because your body is magically different. It's just that, when you're in training, you're supposed to be holding back. That's the whole point of training.
Exactly. I am twice as strong when people are looking.
Mm-hmm. And that's why you have to be so careful.
No, but that's why I don't train in public as much as I was used to. Back in the old days, I went to a lot of street workout events. The last one I went to was like 2 years ago, I think. Because I just don't want to do that. I know myself.
You need to share the video that you shared with us where you're sitting in that chair in the med school with your one leg crossed over the other, and then you just press yourself.
And then I went.
That's like the ultra impossible dip. Yeah. Like that's something else. Because I remember seeing that and I was just like, what the fuck?
I don't even remember. It didn't feel heavy, but when
I know
you
didn't look heavy.
Like, hey.
You were just looking at the camera, like smiling, like. Here's what was happening. Yaad was like reading a book, okay, like this. I don't know if you can see my legs.
I was not reading. I was just sitting. I was just sitting and looking around.
He was in the library at med school, okay, and I've been there. It's a beautiful place, and he's just like sitting here like this. Kind of looks at the camera and just straightens his arms, and his body doesn't move at all. It's like he's still in an invisible chair. It's just now he's like this. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and then I went to a straddle planche, did a push-up, and then I went back to the
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, that was
amazing.
Fun. That was I can still do those things. That's
I know.
Weird part. I can still.
You're stronger now. Like, you don't realize, like, even though you've had some issues, you have built up so much strength, and the things that you're still doing now, even for maintenance, like, you're maintaining that, and it's there. That's the thing. Like, people don't understand that this mass training is so much more important. Powerlifters do it. Everybody does it because it is really the only safe way to reliably build yourself to superhuman levels. And every so often you get to show it off, but you can't do that that often. I mean,
yeah, you can do the weaker stuff when you're really strong.
Yeah. Well,
Like, for example, people who can hold a full planche for 30
Uh-huh.
seconds, they full planche all the time because it's fucking.
yeah, but they're
full
doing
planche.
10 seconds, and you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. But that's the same
but
thing
that's
for my front
easy
lever.
for them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, for the front lever, I could do 43 seconds, but
Mhm.
when I was showing it off, I never did more than 10 because who cares about more than 10? It doesn't look more impressive. So I always just
Right.
went into full lever, held for 10 seconds, and I could do that even when I was beat up, tired as hell, had shoes on, whatever.
Yeah.
Like even those steel shoes did not matter to me.
Yep.
It felt the same. And it's just, I built that capacity, and so I could
Mhm.
front lever whenever I wanted. And it's one of those fun things, front lever was
Yeah.
one of those things I could always do. Like, oh, front lever, yeah, sure, whatever.
That was dips for me. So I never
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
The most I ever did in a set was 50, like for training. And I don't know why. I think it was just because I don't know. I mean, I just didn't. I don't have a good answer for that.
No, you're like enough.
They were
That's good for me. Like,
fast.
enough.
They were fast. Yeah. But and then, so I just started adding weight to that, and that's how I ended up doing 50 reps of 120 pounds. That was the heaviest dumbbell that we had, and so that's what I just held between my knees. And
Jesus.
yeah, and you just put it right above your knees between like your lower thighs, and you just pinch it, and you just do your dips, and then you get off and put the dumbbell back. But I started with 40 or 50 pounds because I knew that was easy, and I just every so often I was like, all right, well, and I started doing like 20 dips, and then I was just like, man, I feel good. I think I can just do a few more today. So I just was like, all right, cool. Well, I mean, I just kind of went to the same feeling, and it just ended up being more and more dips. And then I just got to a point where I said, this set is taking like 40 seconds now, because when you're doing dips fast, you do a lot.
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing.
Exactly.
And, I just kept adding weight to it little by little. I just went up like 5 pounds at a time, and I would just kind of wait until it felt easy at 50 reps again. Just do it. So one day, my buddy Davis, dude, Chris Davis, shout out. He'll probably never see this. He is Black Superman. I'm just telling you right now. He's 5'9". He has small wrists, like small elbows. His pecs are about 3 inches thick. I'm not even kidding you. It's like, I don't understand. His lats, and I don't mean out. I mean, like when you look at his back, it was like he had butt cheeks on his like big, well-developed butt cheeks in the middle of his back. And it was crazy. And he was 162 pounds, okay? I've seen him easily hit like 2-3 reps with 315 pounds. He's literally benching double his body weight. I've seen him do 10 dead hang one-arm pull-ups, not one-arm chins, one-arm pull-ups in a row with one arm, and then do 9 with the other arm. And then hop down. And this was just like, it didn't even look that hard for him. And I was like, what? So he was telling me the story, right? He was at Bud's 2 years before I was. And at Bud's, like, it's a weed out program. You're being hazed. You're being, voluntarily physically tortured with exercise, basically. And you're just trying to show that you're tough enough to be a Navy SEAL, that you're committed, that you don't care about pain. And so things are supposed to be hard. Nothing was hard for that guy. And like nothing was too much for me, but nothing was hard for him. There's a difference.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
There's a difference. Listen. This dude. So here's how he got found out, because he eventually got performance dropped because they got angry at him. The instructors did, because he was always like acting like, I'm somewhere in like the bottom of the upper third of the class, whatever. And so, they'd be doing pull-ups, and he was like, doing the pull-up, like, kind of reaching his chin up and whatever. And so
he's like me. I used to do that.
The guy next to him couldn't finish a pull-up. He was already at the top of his pull-up. So he, in front of everybody, I think he was just had an idiot moment. Plus, I think he likes to show off. Like, he didn't like to show how he gets strong, and also he was just born crazy strong. But he reached down, grabbed the guy's collar, and pulled him up while still holding his chin above the bar with one freaking hand. Who does that? I've never heard of anything like that in my life. He was a legend, dude. So he would do stuff when he thought nobody was right. He taught me to jump, okay? So because I was like, I was just watching him practice, and I was like, Davis, how do you do this, man? Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm strong, but I can't do that. And so he taught me jumping techniques, and we would just do broomsticks, and we just hold the broomstick for each other. Me, him, and my buddy Austin. Shout out to Maurice Austin. I don't know where he's at now, but he's my brother, and I hope he's doing well. But so we would be practicing this stuff, and I got to where I could jump 10 feet because that was how far apart the gripe pads were. People who don't know, like the floor, the floor of the ship has like these points where you're supposed to anchor down, and like you tie down like Humvees and stuff so they don't fall off when the ship rolls. And so I would jump from one pad to the next. Most of them were 8 feet apart. There were certain sets that were 10 feet apart. There was one set from the end of the wind tunnel onto the turntable because we had an area that wasn't enough space for these vehicles to turn. So the floor itself was circular and it turned. So you just get your vehicle on one side, it turns 180 degrees, and now it can go down the next ramp. And these were 13 feet apart. I know because we measured it with a freaking ruler. Like one of those measuring tapes.
Yeah.
Listen, I've seen Davis jump where his toes are behind the first pad and he lands and his heels are past the second pad. He cleared a 13-foot. He was in the air too long. That's how it was weird. That's how weird it was. He was just in the air a little too long. And I mean, awesome. That's where like we measured it because I was like, how far is that? Because I know I can't even come close to that. Bro, the world record is not 13 feet. Look it up.
Shit.
Yeah. We don't have any video, can't prove it, but we were all there. It was unreal. I've seen him routinely just for kicks when he knows nobody's around. I was up like on the 7th floor of the I don't even remember. It's up the captain's ladder, not crap. Up where all the radar equipment is, because we had guns up there. And he was down like at the back of the flight deck, and he's like looking around. And there's all this equipment on there. There's some kind of heavy machinery where the roof of it was like at his chin level, and with one step, he just like jumped, no hands, he just jumped on it like a cat. I was sweet,
awesome.
Bro. I was sweet. I just dropped my broom. I was like, "What did I just watch?" I don't understand this person. Like, this is not a normal human being at all. Like, I already knew that, but it's weird when you see somebody do that many different things incredibly well. So here's where my dip story comes in. Is I knew I was never going to beat Davis in pull-ups, but I always had supreme confidence in my dipping ability. Nobody could beat me. So he was like, let's do it. And so I was like, all right, I mean, let's do it. I don't know what I can do. I don't think I can beat you. I'm just being honest, but I'm going to try. So he did 92 dips in a row. I did 93 dips in a row.
Fuck you, Davis. You got him, man. You're a legend now.
It's the only thing that I'll ever get that man in my entire life. That's it. That's all I got.
He could probably do 150 now, so.
I don't know. I've seen him do, and he did this just to screw with the Marines. They were having a pull-up competition and blah, blah, blah. So I went out there. I did like 26 pull-ups, which was like, I mean, way more than anybody my size could do. And so he comes out. There's a guy who did like, I don't know, 30, 35 pull-ups. It was a lot. So Davis comes out, and he doesn't even say anything. He just kind of like real quiet, like walks out the corner. And here's a crazy thing about Davis. When he's wearing his coveralls, he looks like a normal human being.
Uh-huh.
So you can't really, because he doesn't have a huge frame, you know? He's just like abnormally built. And so you can't really see it through clothing. And unless he's got like a thin t-shirt on or something. And then you're like, what are you hiding on your chest, man? And so anyways, he did 45 pull-ups. Just the last one looked exactly like the first one. Wasn't even breathing hard. And then just hopped down and walked away. Didn't say anything to anybody. And I was just dying. I just fell over. I was like, this is
okay, man.
trolling Marines. Anyway, sorry, that was a digression, but
yeah, no, yeah. He's fucking insane.
Yeah, so
I gotta train some more after this.
the point I was trying to make was somehow related to the question that you asked, but I don't remember what it was anymore.
No, it was about me telling a funny story, but then you also told a funny story.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we got
yeah,
funny
yeah.
stories out there. So we got here you go, 2 funny stories. All right, let's move on to the next question by Tomic Wojtazik. He says, "Do you have any tips for combining planche and front lever work with powerlifting?"
Yeah, don't do both at the same time with high intensity.
So I have a front lever cycle, or you mean don't do planche and powerlifting together, or don't do front lever and planche together?
I'm not saying don't power lift. I mean, I always recommend doing incline bench, and flat bench if you like it. It doesn't really matter which one you do. If you had to pick one, I would suggest incline. But you can absolutely bench for your basic strength. It's a wonderful exercise when it's done right. Here's the thing. Powerlifting is about lifting a heavy weight. It's not about getting... It is about getting stronger, but it's also about changing your leverage. So you're looking, and it's got a very specific set of rules. So you're going to do things in powerlifting to minimize your bench press range of motion. That is the number one thing that will increase your bench press, is not having to move the bar as far. So that means that it's basically like doing partials, but within the rules. So when that's the majority of your training, you're not going to get the best raw strength gains overall. It's going to be super specific, and you're actually going to get better gains even in that if you're doing full range training with dumbbells or a machine or something, and just using bench press as your technique training. Like the barbell only technique training, and use other things like the weighted push-ups and whatever other, like the dumbbell press or like incline bench press, stuff like that. You would use that more as your basic strength, and you would actually treat the bench press itself like a technique. That's how I would do it. So
yeah, I like that.
Does that make sense?
What about a front lever?
Well, a power lifter does not need any particular amount of back strength. What they need is shoulders that don't fall apart. So, people are going to say, like, that's bullshit, man. You use your lats during deadlifts and all this. Yeah, of course you do. I'm not saying you don't need a strong back. I'm just saying that the things that give you a great front lever are not necessarily going to be, like, your weighted pull-ups are not your biggest exercise for a power lifter.
No,
it's just not.
Exactly.
Whereas it is the primary thing for a front lever. So you have a conflict of interest, because the other part of powerlifting is being as strong as possible in those 3 lifts for your weight class. So if you've built 2 extra pounds of muscle on your back that really only helps you with a front lever but doesn't make a difference for your deadlift, then what you just did is made yourself weaker in that weight class. Because even if all your lifts stay the same, there's a formula that's used to find the best overall lifter. And for 2 people in the same weight class, if they both lift the same thing, the lighter person wins. So because they're considered to be stronger since they both did the same thing, but one weighed a pound less than the other, or half a pound less, shit like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So a lot of these things, they work like that. So it depends on like what your goals are. Like, I mean, I think like there's a casual who just wants to be super strong all around. You still have to cycle it. You have to pick whether my focus is more on planche or more on front lever, especially as you get stronger. And you have to swap back and forth between just maintaining one, and that means the basic strength, really, and focusing on the other. Because as you get stronger, you require more volume, and you also require a heavier weight to hit the same rep range. So you're kind of working a little bit, and your reflexes, the protective reflexes that you have, are dulled. So it means that you're able to access a higher percentage of your strength, which means that compared to your first 6 months of training, you're coming closer to your damage limits, and you don't have really any room to spare to screw up. And that means that you're going to be doing more repair work and less growth work after your workouts, which is, I think, personally part of why things start slowing down unless you're really, 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 really careful about what you do. And why, as you become super advanced in bodybuilding, you really do have to be like super OCD to keep making mass gains. But you have to switch back and forth. You get better results that way. You'll actually, if you spent 2 months working on improving planche basic strength and only maintaining your front lever, and then you switch it up and you only maintain your planche and your pressing, and you really spend 2 months building your pulling and your front lever. At the end of those 4 months, your combined progress is going to be better than if you had tried to take a balanced approach to both the whole time. And that is one of those things that separates intermediates and advanced athletes from beginners, is that you can no longer kind of do everything at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
So that would be, I mean, I know that's not like, a written in stone answer, but I think that it has all the elements. I think you have to, you should be treating, you have to pick which one's more important, and that may change from month to month, and that's fine. But in any given month, you need to know what your goal is. And that includes pulling versus pushing, as well as powerlifting versus the GST. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Makes sense, yeah. Let's move on to the next question by Alexander Igabog.
All right.
Our friend. He's talking about a mana, so that's interesting. So I am at a point in mana training where I have decent compression and decent shoulder strength.
Mm-hmm.
I usually did VSIT mana specific holds on parallettes, but now want to transition my training towards ground holds.
Okay.
My question is, at what point should one start practicing fingers backward holds, and what prehab exercises should one start off with?
I think that's a great question.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's no such thing as doing it too early. You just want to make sure that you're not putting uncomfortable pressure. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's really that's always like the underlying rule for everything, is that it shouldn't hurt. And if there's nothing you can do to make, like, if even like a table hold with your fingers backward hurts, which it shouldn't, then you should probably wear wrist wraps while you do it. And if that makes it comfortable, keep wearing the wrist wraps for a while and prioritize some wrist strengthening, some hand and wrist stuff. And you'll find that after, a couple of months of that those problems kind of go away.
Also, one thing is, for example, if you're deep into your man training, you're pretty, doing a lot of volume now, don't immediately do 100% of your volume on the floor.
Yeah.
Start off with 10% on the floor and then 90% on parallettes.
Right.
And make that shift slowly throughout the months.
Exactly.
So you want to make that's very important, especially in his case.
Start your first set on the floor so that you're not inflamed. And then, when you feel comfortable and that's getting a little easier and it feels good, then transition your second set to the floor, and so on and so forth, until you are doing as much on the floor as you feel like doing.
Exactly. And for prehab, just forearm stuff and wrist stuff, really. It's just that should be always a thing in your GSD stuff if you're doing supporting holds.
Yeah.
So the planche, handstands, pre-mana, everything. You need to get big forearms, and you just got to do your prehab for that. So we have a whole article on that, so you can just read that and also warm up your wrists, of course.
Yep. And the one single thing that's, if we were going to say, like, for stretching, would be the hands backwards, straight arm stretch on the knees. You know what I'm saying? Where you're kneeling, you put your hands on the ground. What you're trying, you're trying to lift the fingers and the knuckles off the ground, while without relaxing, if that makes sense. And you want the pressure to be close to the heel of the palm, and then you just lean backwards and you go to a comfortable level of tension, and you hold that for at first it might only be 10 seconds. Eventually you hold that for like at least 30. And you do like, 4, 5, 6 reps of that, and you do that every day. And after a couple of months, you'll find that you have more wrist extension comfortably than you'll ever need in a mana. And at that point, you won't need to worry about it.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next question.
And Yaad shows that. That's Yaad has that in his wrist stuff.
It's in my wrist stuff. It's more ballistic when I do it, but what Josh is saying is just hold it for longer.
Mm-hmm.
When I show it, it's usually like 5 seconds.
But that's because you're doing a warm-up.
Yeah, that's the warm-up. But what he's saying is actual, the routine for stretching.
Right.
Do you recommend doing that after your training, or?
I think it depends on the person. I think that if your goal is the flexibility, then you should do it whenever you have time. The problem with doing it after the training is that you will be more inflamed. So like on a leg day, sure. On a core day, if you don't do a lot of pulling or whatever, and Your forearms aren't particularly tight. Sure.
So preferably outside your wrist training part. So where you're not doing anything with your wrists.
Yeah, at least for the harder
what you wanna-
sessions. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
I would do some gentle stretching after those sessions, but I wouldn't try and make any kind of, real progress. I would just treat it more
Exactly.
as,
Yeah.
keep yourself from getting tight.
Right. Uh, Moving on to the next question by Steven van der Klei. This is a question about our jelly beans. Joshua and Yaad mentioned a few times the use of jelly beans. Can you guys tell me some more about this enhancer and are there alternatives?
Yeah, any carbohydrate. It doesn't even have to be sweet. The sweetness has nothing to do with it. Here's what we know.
Well, first off, it's called carb rinsing. I think
Yes.
that's a good thing people know.
Yeah, good call. So Yad's exactly right. What we're doing is we're taking advantage of carb rinsing. I didn't know that this is what I was doing. I got this back in, I think, 2003 from the sidebar of, I think it was Fitness RX. I don't remember. It was an old magazine. And one of these pro bodybuilders was just talking about like little tricks and tips. And his his tip was like, I'm in the gym for like 2 hours and I eat Skittles. Like I just have 1 or 2 Skittles between sets and I feel great. So I tried the Skittles and my stomach got upset after about 30 minutes. It's just too much acid for me. I don't have any reflux or anything like that. The Skittles didn't sit well in my stomach past a certain point. It just was what it was. We're all different. So I went and got jelly because I realized, like, I bet this is just the citric acid. It's just got too much in there for me. Because I'm eating like half a bag of Skittles while I'm working out with short rest. Like, that's not the best combination.
Yeah.
I heard about like, I had friends in Singapore. They were like, bro, we always have honey and bread and we just take a small bite between every set. So I tried that, but it was messy. So I was kind of frustrated with that. And then I tried a bunch of different stuff. And what I found worked best for me was just having jelly beans. I just got Jelly Belly. I tried the store brand. I tried the Jelly Bellies. Any jelly bean that looks like a Jelly Belly and actually is made with sugar is going to work.
Okay. So what is it that actually works? What is it about carb rinsing? What does it do?
It's purely neurological. What I thought I was doing was supporting my blood sugar levels and like, keeping myself from fatiguing as my liver got sort of to its it's not that it's
Completion of collection.
Yeah, there's a point at which your liver stops sharing so easily because it's kind of designed to be more of a battery for your brain than anything else. And
Yeah.
Totally. So
but what it's actually doing is we don't know what, but we do know
it's neurological.
Neurological output sort of.
Yeah,
but we don't know why.
No, yeah, all we know is that it is essentially acting through the sympathetic system in some way. We don't know if it's really acting directly through the sympathetic system, but as a result of whatever sensory input we get from the carbs. And it's not something you can feel. There are literally neurological receptors in your mouth that directly respond to carbohydrate exposure. It can be bread flour. It doesn't matter what it is.
It doesn't need to be. It just needs to be carbs, and you don't even have to ingest it. You can even spit it out if you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So you don't even have to take it in.
Correct. I always just shoot them up and swallow them because it takes like 30 seconds, to really like, if you just chew a jelly bean till it turns into mush, it takes most of your rest time. And the research shows that you need at least 10 seconds of contact with your oral mucosa, which means the skin on the inside of your mouth. And so without knowing it, I was meeting all of the required conditions for carb rinsing. And
can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so it's carb rinsing jelly beans, but I think there's also another like pro to it, and that is it's also kind of hydration if you combine with water.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it's got salt, it's got glucose, and if you add water to that, you're kind of doing sort of ORS, but then not the disgusting version.
So there's truth to that. You just have to see what feels good to you. Like, I tried using Gatorade for that reason, but again, Gatorade has a lot of, has a reasonable amount of citric acid in it as well.
Yeah, and then you have the stomach.
Yeah, I just found that after I had like half a gallon of Gatorade, I just didn't stomach much more. and we didn't have good air conditioning in the ship gym, and I would be down there for like an hour and a half, and I needed more than half a gallon of water, because I was sweating a lot. So
But
I did not
just
know.
always.
I did not know about oral rehydration solution at the time, or I would have made a version of it. Now, to do this yourself, first off, I'm going to tell you
Really easy.
the real thing a lot of people don't like. There are two ways to make it better. One is, those squeeze flavor things like the Mio, or they're all over the place now.
Like the flavor drops.
Right. You just squeeze in there until you really can't taste the salt so much. That's totally acceptable. Some people will be like, bro, that's a lot of artificial sweeteners. Yeah, but, do what you need to do. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
There are, some people do great with it. Some people might not like it. I don't think that, especially with the ones, I do not use sucralose. That is a thing that I have. I will use the acesulfame or whatever, potassium.
Stevia? Are you okay with?
I personally don't like stevia, but I don't really care. That's up to the individual. It's got a bitter aftertaste in high concentration. Yeah, exactly. To me, it's just potato. It's whatever you prefer. I don't really care. And you don't have to do that either. You can also, just because you need like not a tablespoon, but like a teaspoon of table salt to make a proper oral rehydration solution for 1 liter of water, doesn't mean you actually have to use that much. Any salt that you put in is going to improve water absorption if there's also sugar. So if you have a jelly bean, and you're chewing up like 2 jelly beans between each set, and you have a swig of water, or even a quarter teaspoon, which is 1.25 grams or 1.25 milliliters. So and that ends up being like 600 milligrams of actual sodium. Just put whatever amount you can tolerate. Do not use iodized table salt if you have a sensitive palate. I use iodized salt because I don't want to be iodine deficient. That's just me. But, you only need like half a teaspoon per day to get all the iodine that you need. So it's easy, but you can taste the difference. It's got a nasty flavor to a lot of people. Sea salt is much more acceptable to most people in terms of taste. There's no difference in efficacy. It's just a question of what you can deal with. That makes sense?
Yeah, well, yeah. For me though, I just taking a jelly bean and then swallow it down with water at the end.
Yeah,
keeps me really hydrated.
It will.
I know there's not a. I just looked up the macros. It's only 50 milligrams per 100.
Right.
Per
serving.
57. Yeah, per serving.
Yeah, there's basically no salt.
Well, yeah,
but just the carbohydrates will also draw water in with them. So
exactly, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So you could technically have some salt with you and put it in your mouth and then swallow it out.
Absolutely,
that could actually be better because salt in your mouth first on its own is pretty cool. But if you have water, it's kind of.
I like it.
Swallowed it down.
Look, I have those salt lamps. I lick them.
Yeah, you're weird.
Because I like them. Yeah, I know. Morgan tells me all the time. She's like, "All right, Reese, look,
yeah."
There's your dad being weird again.
You're a weird guy.
But I like him. I don't know. It's just me. So yeah, I don't care how you do it. But the carb rinsing is a big help. And what it does, it reduces perceived exertion. So when you do the same amount of work, you don't feel like you've worked as hard. You can actually
keep going longer.
Yes,
that too.
You can keep going longer. And this is statistically significant. This is like, okay, when you watch a professional bike race, the top 3 to 5 people are usually finishing within like 30 to 60 seconds of each other. In a like 1 hour like maximum speed bike test, which that's a long test. The personal time, like the time that it takes to complete that reduces by like 2 or 3 minutes in trained cyclists. So this is like, that's a huge deal. That is changing your place on the podium. You know what I'm saying? If you were the only person, if you were in 5th place, that might put you in second or third place.
Yeah, second or third, yeah.
Maybe first, but like that actually could change your career. You know what I mean? Which is why everybody does it now.
Yeah.
So that it does make a difference. It also increases peak power, which is also interesting by like 2 or 3%. So the point is just that it makes everything easier. It's really cheap. It's really easy. And I like the jelly beans because they are not sticky. They don't spill. They're easy to keep in your pocket. Nobody really sees them. So like even if your gym has like no food or no drink, not that anybody should ever have no drink, but you know what I mean? Like they have kind of restrictions. You can still pull the jelly beans off. And
my gym is actually anti-food, but when they see me carry that bucket with jelly beans, because I have a bucket always, they're okay with it. They're like, you know, cool,
yeah, but they're like, well, there's
no
jelly, there's no sauce, like nothing's gonna get on the floor.
Exactly.
If you drop it, nothing's left behind.
I offer it to everyone in the gym, like, you want some? You want some? Like, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Carb rinsing, look it up. Look it up. And everyone's looking weird at me in the beginning, but now everyone's cool with it. It's like, oh, he's got the jelly bean guy is here, and then they take some jelly beans.
It's also a trick. The first time that they do it, and you know they do it for the whole workout, they're like, damn, this actually works.
Yep. And it's really cheap. That's another pro.
Yeah.
It's really cheap. So that's why I shared with everyone, because it's fucking cheap.
Absolutely. I think it's a great tip.
If it was ketones, then I would not share with everyone. That's really expensive.
It doesn't work either. So,
yeah, we'll talk about that later. I want to some other time.
The only time that any kind of aerobic substrate will be useful is basically going to be in a submaximal aerobic environment where you are energy restricted. So that is it's basically ultras.
Okay.
I mean, really, like
I don't see why I should be, because I'm not even close to aerobic stuff. So I'm only doing strength training, if you think about, and hypertrophy maybe, but I don't need.
Ketone supplements are not going to help anything.
They're getting cheaper, by the way.
If you like them, look, they're pretty low risk. It's just that it's money for no tangible benefit. I can't support that. Yeah, but I'm not going to slap like a massive warning label on something if it's literally like the beta hydroxy, whatever the fuck, that ketone is fine. I mean, it's the primary thing your body makes. Yes, you'll absorb it. Yes, you'll burn it. Yes, it's going to increase your acidity a little bit. So it actually has been shown to not necessarily be helpful, just like lactate supplementation. And if you're already providing ketones, your body is not going to make as many. So if you're trying to do keto, you may actually be suppressing your own ketogenesis. So if you're already paying more for meat, why would you also pay more for something that is not going to give you any additional benefit? It just doesn't make sense to me. But that's also on the outside. If you feel better with it, whatever.
Yeah. Now, let's move on to the next question by Dan Hughes.
Okay.
Hope Josh is enjoying fatherhood. I'm about a year and a half in myself, and it's such a beautifully brutal way of life, which I think
he has much more insight into that than I do, because I was talking with my surgeon yesterday, right? And because we had my 6-week follow-up, my arm's basically straight now. I get to start physical therapy. Yay.
Yay.
She was like, bro, how's the baby doing? So, we're talking and I'm showing her, she's like, man, like I had twins, and here's what I'm going to tell you. Even with one, just get ready and enjoy, carry them around, go to restaurants, have a great time, because once they are mobile, and especially once they're mobile and able to like communicate, look out. Everything's going to take forever, and they're going to want to do stuff, and it's cool, but it's like you just need to account for things taking at least twice as long. You're going to get like nothing done. So do things while you can, and then just have a good time with them once they start getting ridiculous.
Yep. Well,
but
anyway,
I'm loving it.
This question is yeah, you should. This question is for the Mass Cycle 1 and 2. He says, in Mass Cycle 1 and 2, I used bodyweight neutral grip pull-ups. Because neutral grip was chosen was the easiest mobility and stability wise for the shoulders.
Cool.
and he's the strongest in that. And I also realized playing around on my pull-up bar at home that when I do overhand pull-ups, my lats contract better and get a better pump. So to boil the question down to specifically, why does overhand pull-ups recruit the lats so much better than neutral grip pull-ups?
Some of that's going to be how you're doing it, and some of it is just going to be that the lats are an internal rotator. So anything that allows more internal rotation of the shoulder, which the pronated grip or the overhand grip does, because here's the thing. When you are hanging, right, and you can see in the video, do my elbows move very much when I go from neutral to pronated? Not hardly at all, right? What about at the top position? Is there a difference here versus here? I mean, not that much either, but when you pull up in the neutral, you're here. When you pull up in the pronated, so this is kind of neutral. Pronated, you can just get further back. You know what I'm saying? You're getting a slightly better range of motion. You are allowing for a little bit more shoulder rotation, because you notice like the internal rotation here. If I keep the shoulder there, where's my hand at? It's rotated in like 30 degrees. Whereas if I come here and I keep it like this and bring it back, you can't do a pull-up like this. You'll screw yourself up. So there, you actually get better shoulder internal rotation with the pronated grip. So I think that that's probably going to be why you're feeling it a little bit better, but I personally never felt a difference. I just didn't. Part of that too may be like your internal cueing. So like with the pronated grip, I think it's easier for people to think, okay, I'm going to pull like my shoulders back as I pull the bar down. And with the neutral grip, that doesn't like really happen as automatically, and that may be making the difference for you. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's a hard one to assess. But the way to figure it out to me is to get up top, do kind of a top hold, and do some small range of motion at the top, even if it's with a foot assist, and figure out, okay, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? Where are my lats at? Like how, what? And then just keep doing that. And it might actually help to do this with rings so that you can kind of slowly change the hand position and figure out how to keep the lats doing what they're doing. And that might actually be a huge game changer for you in like the midterm, like over the course of a couple of months, because practicing that may allow you to change the feeling of the neutral grip pull-up and maybe get a little more out of it. But, it may also not matter. Like, I really wouldn't worry about it as long as you're making progress.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
next question.
I always did equal volumes of both, to be honest with you. Every session, I always did 2 sets of neutral grip, 2 sets of I always did, I want to say I always did wide, and then I don't remember if I think I did neutral last. I think I did wide and then like regular and then neutral. And occasionally...
In the past?
Yeah.
For me in the past, I always did neutral, always.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I did wide first, 4 sets, I think, and then neutrals, 2 sets.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Eventually, because I needed more. You basically had me more doing wide pull-ups.
Yeah.
Back then,
I would always do the wide first, so that you're not overly inflamed when you're getting that weird stretch on the teres major.
Yeah, but I do have to say I still prefer neutral over everything. It just feels so much more solid. I can always pull much more. Much more with neutral than supinated and pronated.
I think that a lot of people have that experience, and I think that's fine.
It feels so good. I don't know. I just like, I don't know.
There's not enough
I can't
of a
put it
difference.
into words.
There's so much research on this, and there's just not enough difference to care whether you're doing better with pronated or neutral. That's just the honest truth. You just do what works.
Let's move on to the next question by Brian. His question basically is, how would you program for multiple one-arm chin-ups after achieving your first?
I would be doing the same thing. You just slowly... there's no change.
Yeah, you just do it whatever you did to get to the one-arm chin-ups.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do, the absolute worst thing you can do, is try to continually do more and more and more of those single one-arm chin-ups. That is a
Yeah.
Terrible. Because you got to remember, what are you looking for? You're looking for volume in a set. And where do you make progress? Pretty equally throughout a very wide range of intensities. Where do you have the most injury risk? High intensity. So if you're going to be able to make similar progress no matter where you put your extra work on, shouldn't you be putting your extra work in the safer rep ranges? I think so. That's
Mm,
that's
Yeah.
exactly how I think about it.
But that's how you should approach any skill.
Yeah, I
Any
mean,
skill that has like higher,
that's
it's more,
everything.
yeah, everything.
It really is. I mean, that's how, the smarter power lifters, the Olympic lifters, all these people, this is becoming more and more and more common, especially after people get hurt. Because here's what usually happens: I'm talented, I'm a beast, I'm tearing it up, I'm better than everybody, I'm going to be a champ. And they are going to be a champ. I don't need to do that fancy stuff. Then they get
Yeah.
hurt, and their body will no longer tolerate the abusive regime that it tolerated previously. Because it really wasn't tolerating it. It was just getting to a point where now it's breaking me down. I just don't know it. And then there's a problem. Now I've got to change my ways. And then when they change to a smarter approach, they actually set new records. So I think that's where
Yep.
people get confused, both on the outside looking in and the athlete themselves. And there's no way to gain that perspective unless you're, without going through that yourself, unless you're willing to trust the growing number of people who are making waves and are telling you repeatedly the same thing, that this is how we are doing it to stay safe long term and still set new records.
He also has a question regarding unilateral exercises, and he's
Mhm.
asking, when training unilateral exercises, will the volume for each side be the same as they will be for bilateral exercises? And then, like, basically,
Yeah.
yes, just 2 RIR.
Yeah.
And then so that could be different because you're doing a
It will
different
be different.
exercise. If you're
Almost
Yeah,
every
so it
single
will be
person.
different. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
not like if you can do a 60 kilo overhead press with barbell, it won't be just like 30 kilo dumbbell. It will be radically different.
Right. It will.
Yeah,
The so the thing is, you just want to pick a weight for each hand that is going to get you more or less in the rep range you want to be with the correct number of reps in
exactly.
reserve. That's
That's it.
basically it. If it's like,
That's for everything. Don't question it. It's like don't even think about
right,
much more. Don't make it more complicated than it is.
right, and
That's all it is.
right, there's two ways to approach it. One, you do the exact ish. You stick the same number of rep ranges, even if it's a slightly different weight in each hand. Two, you use a slightly different rep range so that it's the same weight in each hand. There is no right or wrong there. It's only what feels best to you.
Yep. And then he has one more question regarding the lab program.
Okay.
He says he's not interested in achieving full front lever and planche at the moment,
Okay.
but he's still interested in our programming. So does he need to make any modifications to the structure of cycle?
Well, I don't know what his goals are.
Or if the goal were just to get strong at certain bent arm movements,
What
they just want.
what movements?
So I'm guessing what he's trying to say is I just want to get stronger at the basic strength.
Yeah, they just keep doing basic strength.
Yeah, just
Absolutely. And
So-
it's like just follow the skill programming. You're going to keep making progress there. That's the thing. The skill programming, I don't mean the skill cycle. I just mean that the technique training, those static holds, the leans, the
Yeah.
entries and exits, all of that stuff, you don't need to do a huge amount of it to keep getting better at it. Your strength
And
is
it's
going to
also
show.
it's not a lot more time you have to spend on it,
Right.
and it's not conflicting with your other programming.
Right.
Sometimes it's good to take a step back from from basic strength, and then come back to it some more later on. That's sometimes even if you don't
Yeah.
do any skill, that's still a good option. It's not like
Right.
just follow the program and do the skills if you want,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like probably you should because then you'll have a free planche. So
Right.
why not? So
Right. Well, this also ties into something else that nobody asked, but there is some newer research that, like, if you follow Chris Beardsley, he's an exercise science guy.
Mhm.
It's one of those things getting discussed a little bit. Is like, is there a point at which you have to deload? he takes this position. He takes a very extreme position in the camp of no, you shouldn't have to deload if you're programming properly. The reason that I'm mentioning this is you're asking how to get stronger. So if you're constantly doing basic strength, there is some research that you may come across that will be like, okay, well, after 3 months, it seems like we've reached peak effectiveness, and at 6 months, we actually start moving backwards. Everybody who's worked out for years and eaten well knows that that's not true. However, we usually have constant resets. We're not always doing 5 sets with 2 RIR in a particular rep range without ever doing less for a week here and there. That's very unusual. So all I'm saying is that regardless of what you read, there is evidence that you probably need to change the intensity every so often, and more importantly, you probably need to drop the volume every so often and then build back up. And that is something that is a part of our core programming. And the reason for that is that you could be OCD and add like 3/4 of an ounce every single workout. Add a particular amount of weight for each exercise every workout. You would lose your mind doing that. So while technically you could probably find just the right increments, and believe it or not, this is what people did back in the 1800s and early 1900s, because the plate-loaded barbell did not get invented until like 1908. It was a European invention. It came to America in 1912. Before that...
Shit. You know your shit, man.
That's not that long ago, right?
Yeah, whoa.
You know what people had? They had hollow globes, and they filled it with lead shot. So little balls of lead, they'd take like a teaspoon, usually every day, and they would just add it, and they would just do the same routine every single day with like an extra ounce of weight. And you scale that out, and you say 365 divided by 16 ounces. These people were adding 25 pounds a year. But what happened was that they became retarded strong, and they were monsters. I mean, these people with no nutrition knowledge, no training knowledge, were able to make constant, continuous progress and do things that many of our strong people today have trouble with. And it was common to do a 200-pound bent press, which is where you clean a 200-pound dumbbell. So just think about that. You clean a 200-pound dumbbell first, okay? One hand or two hand, that's a heavy dumbbell. You have it in one hand, you lean over to the side, and you straighten the arm as you lean to the side, and then you come back. So there's a lot of balance involved. There's a lot of strength involved. It's different than an overhead press. And you were not even considered to be a part of the big boy club if you could not bench press 200 pounds. The world record for it with Arthur Sampson was I think it was 300 and it was over 350 pounds. That's what? And then there was a French dude in the late 1800s, Louis Cyr, who he was so fat that he couldn't bend over. So that motherfucker actually just pressed 260 something pounds in one arm. Bro, nobody's ever done that. In modern times, not one person has ever done that.
That's 121 kilos.
Yeah. It's bananas. And they built that with super slow incremental resistance. And
maybe I should do that.
But you got to understand, these guys were performing twice a day, 7 days a week. They would do these feats of strength, but that was actually a part of their workout. So they weren't actually maxing out. They were just living really heavy shit that was normal for them. They were bending things, but it was normal for them. It took a couple of years for them to get built up to the point where they could perform. So they would travel around with a successful strongman troupe, and they would be training and they'd be cleaning and they'd be cooking and doing these other things. And then when they got strong enough, they'd be added to the roster as an opening act. And the point I'm making is that you technically can do incremental resistance and never, ever, ever have to deload or do anything else. But the degree of mindless, slow, invisible progression is unsustainable for the average person in this day and age. And that means that from a practical perspective, it is more helpful to go through the kind of cycling that we offer because it's easy and what basically everybody alive does in some form or fashion is that you build up and then you retest and drop the volume, and then you build up and you just keep doing that over and over and over again, every 4 to 8 weeks for most people. Sometimes you can go longer than that. Sometimes, people need even shorter cycles. That's a complicated discussion. For everybody who's listening to this, I can guarantee you that the 4 to 8 week range is always going to work well. Unless you become a champion at strength stuff, and then you may need to do things differently. But until you are so close to your limits, you really don't need to change that much. It's if you actually have to make adaptations outside of that basic process in order to keep making progress, you have become very strong. You have achieved more than most people will ever achieve. And that's why, advanced training methods are not something to strive for. They're a last-ditch effort to keep making progress. And that's what you have to realize is they offer no benefit to somebody who doesn't need them yet. They just allow somebody who has to continue fine-tuning in order to keep making progress because they have just done so much and accomplished so much and are so close to their upper limit of physical ability that they just have to really get nitty-gritty to avoid overdoing it. That's where advanced training methods really come in. So the
question has been answered.
Yeah. So basically just follow the strength programming and, do the holds, have fun with them. Here's the thing. You do that for a couple of years, you're probably going to have a full planche and a full front lever anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're committed to that and you're just doing your leans and you're doing like just a couple of front lever holds, a couple days a week, whatever, you're just going to keep making progress.
Exactly. Let's move on to the last question.
Okay.
This is it. Gonzalo Martins. He says, hey guys, a quick brainstorm question regarding the Victorian pulls.
Mm-hmm.
Will we benefit more by doing this exercise laying down on a bench? Support platform on your chest? And then we can load and focus on that pull and retraction?
No. You should be laying on your back.
Says, Victorian pulls we're talking about.
Yes.
Well, he's talking about the one where you're standing for like reverse chest flies, but then arms stretched.
Yeah. But so, okay. So
yeah. Just making sure. He's saying basically saying standing versus laying on a bench.
Yeah, so you're going to want to be in more of a bent over position. Cables, honestly, are a better choice than dumbbells for this exercise in particular because you can get a more... So when you're doing the dumbbells, it's just a lot of shear stress on the lower back.
Yeah, I felt that.
They're both good. The reason that I never had a problem with that is that I just had...
You're strong.
Yeah, I had monster deadlift endurance and strength. So like... I wasn't setting records or anything, but I was easily doing 12 reps with Romanian deadlifts for 405 pounds. So for me, grabbing 55-pound dumbbells and bending over and doing, 20 or 30 reps of Victorian pulls was no big deal. But that's not going to be true for most people. In fact, as you get heavy, the dumbbells are a great place to start. They're super accessible. They're everywhere. And it's kind of obvious what you need to do. When you start getting, and the nice thing too is that just by doing some of the volume that way, you're also practicing your brace, you're building that endurance in the lower back and in the core in general, you're learning to hold your position during dynamic movements. So there's a lot of positives to doing that. But as you get to a point to where you start having trouble with technique or something just like, oh, my back's getting tired, like down near my hips and stuff, and, I just I'm stronger than this, but I can't keep doing it this way and still make progress. then that becomes your warm up. And then you go to a cable machine and, you either use like the lat pull down bar because you can get your hands about the same width as a front lever and a Victorian. And you just, step back and do the pulls that way. Or, you know what I'm saying? Where you start off
But that's more like a row, right?
like a straight arm row. Because that's what these are.
Okay.
That's what you got to remember is that just as a Maltese lift is a straight arm bench press, it's basically a straight arm wide grip bench press. The Victorian pull is nothing but a straight arm wide grip row. Because what are we doing? We're extending the shoulder. That means we're rowing.
Yeah.
Right? We're going from in front of us, pulling towards us in the horizontal plane. That's a row. We're just not bending the elbows in the process. And
well, how do you not bend your arm though?
you just don't.
With the lat pull down thing. I mean, I get it if you have two separate.
It's no different. You just lean.
I'm trying to do it right now, but
you just lean back.
You want to keep this. Oh yeah, so it's more of a scapular retraction thing.
No, I mean, look, man. So you're not starting from overhead. What you're doing is you go to a cable machine, like on the cable row or something.
Right, like you start like in a Maltese.
So you stand up, and you're really going to start more like in a slightly wide planche. And you know what I'm saying? With the bar in front of you, and it's pulling away from you. And then you're going to have to throw your weight backwards a little bit.
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
okay,
and you just pull so that the bar hits over your center of mass.
I was thinking of like when you do a Victorian pull from a front lever, like obviously you widen out like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you start imagine front lever's a Victorian.
Right.
But then with a barbell, I was like, how can you do that? But now I get what you mean.
Yeah, you just start with you just keep the same hand width that you would use for a Victorian.
What about the range of motion versus, like, let's say we
really
mimic a front lever to Victorian versus that exercise.
There's really not much of a difference in range of motion. There's a little bit, but it's not enough to matter. And it's in a shorter muscle position. It's just not that important. I will say that I always liked using double handle cable machines like Free Motions more than anything else. And what I was
about to suggest that
is I put those overhead and I make them a little bit wider than rings because the straps are shorter basically, so you can't keep them as close together. And then what you do, you just find a comfortable width, and then you pull from a simulated front lever position down into a simulated Victorian position. It's that simple. And
yeah, I was about to recommend doing.
That's my top choice.
Okay,
if available.
What do you think about doing actual assisted front lever to Victorians with 30 kilo assist if you're 60 kilo?
If you can do it.
Okay.
It's just that's a lot of specialized equipment.
Yeah.
So it's not as accessible. I don't think it's always
just asking for myself.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's always the best choice because you may find that, first off, it's only one resistance level, and yeah, you can keep it. You can keep, slowly using less resistance, but you're starting to get into a very kind of a higher intensity zone there. So I would just be careful.
Yeah. Eventually, it gets pretty. Then it becomes the real thing eventually, and you can't rep out the real thing.
Right. So you just have to be careful about the way you always want to progress volume, and you want to make sure you're using enough assistance to where you can get at least 10, 15 easy reps. And you know what I mean? And
yeah, I feel you.
And you can't be struggling with form. That's the thing. And so that's going to be a limitation on that exercise.
Yeah, that's going to be hard because you want to keep your body straight and everything. So
right.
That makes, I get it. That's why.
But you can do a tuck, you know what I mean? You can do one leg. That's a hell of a lot easier. You can be a little bit piked.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, we're training the back. When you're learning a position, you kind of have to pick and choose what you're going to work when. And when you're doing strength training, you've got to be focusing on the working muscles and build yourself up. Most people here are never going to compete. They're not going to do competitive gymnastics. And even if they were, we would be practicing the holds in a spotted position completely separately. And I would be way less concerned about a form breakdown in the legs and the hips.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care during strength training. I would care during a snap to a hold. That's different. So, because they're two different skills. And
People
that's what
should
you have to
see my
realize.
handstand push-ups during my mass cycle as strength work versus when I show them off.
Right.
When I show them off, they're beautiful. But when I do them just as strength work, I don't worry about my hips spiking or whatever.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just trying to get the reps in.
Yeah.
I just want my upper body to move roughly the same for every rep.
Exactly.
The rest I don't care about.
Exactly. That's correct.
And that's important to remember. It's like, but maybe I should post that stuff like that more on my Instagram so people see it's not every rep I do is beautiful.
Yeah. People need to see that because it's we all have this instinct to like only show the best part of ourselves. But
I have that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's more important when you're a public figure, especially when you're a teacher, to show that imperfection is also normal and acceptable because it's going to happen, and you can't feel bad about it. You just have to say, okay, well, certain things are acceptable, certain things aren't. What am I concerned with in this workout? Why doesn't this matter? I'll tell you why, because then when I show off, I still do perfect form practice. I just don't try and do that when I'm concentrating on moving heavy shit,
No, but I actually did a post on I showed a swell planche push-up when I show it off. So when I was laying down and lock it out, hold it at the top, down, up, hold it at the top for 3 reps.
Right.
And then when I do for hypertrophy, I don't lock out. I don't my body isn't as straight as the other one. I don't hold it. I just go. I do reps.
Right.
Like it's completely different.
Yeah, and it's like
what?
If your hips start piking, that's good. That's fine because it's going to let you get a little more volume, and you just pay attention. This is what I do, and it's like that's, and then so you're basically doing a drop set without ever getting off the out of planche.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and
I'm
that's
waiting
fine.
for my P-bars then so I can even further go into a tuck eventually even.
Right.
That'd be really cool.
Right. And you just say, okay, well, I'm just like anything else, I'm careful about my volume progression. And, I know what I'm going to do. I know like, okay, I've got like one good straddle push up left. So I'm going to get into a flat tuck and do a few more. I maybe only have one good one here. So I'm going to do a few more in a regular tuck. And then
just 2 reps in reserve, man.
Yeah.
Just 2 reps in reserve. Even with straddle, we're like, okay, I cannot do another straddle planche push up without it looking disgusting. I'm just gonna go into advanced tuck and do another one. Okay, that was it.
Yeah.
Let me one flat tuck. Okay, cool. All right, I'm done.
Exactly.
That's my set. I managed to get 2 reps extra. Still feeling that same reps in reserve feeling. So that's good. That's what you want.
Yeah,
I also like
that's safe too. What it's doing is it's giving you volume exposure without trying to do more at a higher intensity. And that's something that people are not really.
It's actually better to get more volume in and get that same reps in reserve with a lower intensity. If you can do that, that's actually better.
Yeah,
for your overall. You can handle more volume like that without having to be strained as much.
Yep.
So if I had to choose 5 kilo dumbbell biceps and I still got 2 reps in reserve with 10 reps, I'd be happy with that.
Yep.
I don't want to be doing that with 30 kilo dumbbells.
No.
That sucks.
Yep.
If I could do it with 5 kilo, that's a good thing. Then it's like, sure, it's not as much, but I'm still planching.
It's not. Yeah, it's the thing is, it's not about the weight. It's just about making progress. Your workout should never be a ego booster. Especially not in the moment. You should feel good about achieving your goals, and you should also feel good about stopping short when you need to. You should never feel good about going beyond what you asked yourself to do in your programming. That should never be a positive. That should always be a negative.
So for the people who are listening, we do Lab Bro Fitness episodes sometimes covering certain subjects. I'm requesting now one from Josh. Can you do a Lab Bro Fitness on drop sets?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think it's a very important concept. I haven't used it as much, but I think it's very important to know how to use them.
It is. You know why it's important? Because that's one of the keys to time efficiency for people who don't have a lot of time.
Exactly. That's why I want you to do a whole topic on that, because I think
that's stuff
I myself can learn.
That's stuff that's going to be added into the mass cycles in particular.
Yeah, we should probably have like lab roads like in
Yeah, it's
between.
like, I mean, I've told people this. The problem really has been that I didn't have any time available. So I was out on sick leave for a little over a month, and got a lot of stuff done, and made some pretty large overhauls to the way that we're presenting the information. And so things are going to be going a lot smoother with less questions. And these things are also being worked in so that we are steadily teaching you without overloading your brain, but
Exactly.
giving you the options that you need when life is crazy, because that's important. It's about having a way to move forward.
Yep. Anyway, we answered all the questions. It's been almost 2 hours.
Yep.
I think we did a good job. Thoroughly answered all of them. Guys, as usual, keep sending in your questions. We answer all of them. And we had a blast again.
Yeah, thanks for
And that's it
listening.
for this.
See you guys next time.
See you guys.